A millionaire grabs the wrong suitcase at the airport, and what he found made him fall in love with a poor girl. Before we start the story, leave a comment below and let us know, where are you watching from? Enjoy the story. Tyler Stone was rushing through the airport terminal. He was late for a meeting with a group of Japanese investors who could double the year's revenue. Everything had to go perfectly. At the baggage carousel, Tyler saw a black suitcase with red details, just like his. He grabbed it and walked off as if the airport were on fire. Across the carousel, Grace, wearing a dinosaur hoodie and a messy bun on top of her head, widened her eyes. "Wait, hey, you took my suitcase." She ran after him, her small backpack bouncing, squeaky sneakers clapping, shouting like she was at an auction. People turned to look. And Tyler, of course, kept walking. "Hey, suit guy, that's my bag." He stopped, turned around with a not-so-friendly look. The girl came toward him like a human missile. "This is my suitcase," Grace said, reaching for his arm, breathless. "No, it's mine." "No, it is mine," she snapped, pulling the suitcase. "Give it back." "Let go, miss, please. I have a meeting in 15 minutes. I don't have time for—" He grumbled, pulling it back. That started a tug-of-war worthy of a championship match, one pulling this way, the other pulling that way. And then, zip! The zipper gave out. The suitcase popped open. It was as if a Victoria's Secret fashion show had exploded across the airport floor. Lacy underwear, floral bras, a pair of socks with Nicolas Cage's face on them, and crowning the embarrassment, a neon pink vibrator slid all the way to the feet of an older gentleman sipping coffee at Starbucks. Silence. Then laughter. Lots of laughter. Grace froze for half a second, then dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather her intimate items as fast as she could. Tyler dropped down too, trying to help, but every piece he touched just made things worse. "Don't touch my flower panties," she yelled, slapping his hand away. "I'm just trying to help." "Help? You're just making it worse. You're the one who kept pulling. You grabbed the wrong bag, you corporate banana." Click. Someone took a photo. Click, click. Someone started recording. "Oh yeah, this is definitely going on TikTok," a teenager nearby muttered. Tyler turned red. Grace turned purple. The vibrator kept glowing on the floor until a child reached for it, thinking it was a toy. The mom screamed. More chaos. "Great," Tyler said. "Now I'm famous because of your avocado print underwear. And I'm going to have to sue you for public trauma. I'm sending you the bill for my suit. There's glitter in my pockets." Grace stuffed everything back into the suitcase, slammed the zipper shut with fury, and stood up, outraged. "You should check the name tag before grabbing someone's bag, Mr. Big Shot. And you should keep that in a more discreet place," he said, subtly pointing at the item still half sticking out of the suitcase. She stared at him like she was about to explode. Then, with as much dignity as she could muster, she zipped it closed with a firm click and took a step back. "Good day to you too, Mr. Ice Cold." She turned and walked away, carrying the suitcase like a trophy of shame. Tyler looked at his watch. 10 minutes to the meeting. He huffed, turned around, went back to the carousel, and found his real suitcase, black with subtle gray stripes and a leather tag that read T. Stone. He picked it up silently, but deep down, way deep down, he smiled. Hours later, Tyler stepped into the company elevator, breathing hard, hair messy, and his suit still showing traces of glitter. The meeting with the Japanese investors was about to begin. He straightened his collar, adjusted his tie, and took a deep breath. The doors opened with a smooth chime. A well-dressed receptionist guided him to a massive room with floor-to-ceiling glass windows, a conference table the size of a golf course, and sharply dressed executives with folders, laptops, and focused eyes. Perfect, professional, cold, corporate. But then, he saw her. At the far end of the table, right next to Mr. Kobayashi, the lead investor that morning, there she was, Grace, with the same messy bun from the airport, now trying to blend in under a blazer 2 sizes too big, and "I'm not really here" expression. Her notebook sat crooked on the table, and a pink pen jittered nervously between her fingers. Tyler froze in the doorway. He stopped. Then, a second later, stepped forward and said, louder than he meant to, "You've got to be kidding me. It's the crazy underwear girl with the vibrator? Again?" Every head in the room turned to him. Grace squinted, like it might be a mirage, but it wasn't. The corporate banana was really there, and he'd seen her. She shrank back in her chair. "Mr. Stone," the interpreter said, trying to regain control, Welcome. Mr. Kobayashi is looking forward to your presentation. Right? Yes, thank you. Tyler replied with an awkward smile. Then he turned back to Grace and whispered sarcastically, "Let me guess, you're an expert in international business now?" She forced a smile. "I'm a temp secretary. Someone's got to write down the nonsense you say." "Perfect. Then write this down. Mr. Stone lost his mind after seeing the underwear queen again. I'm the victim here, you suit-wearing lunatic. You're the one who scattered my lingerie all over the terminal. You're the one who yanked the suitcase like a construction crane, and now you show up here trying to look professional? It's my job, unlike you who thinks CEO stands for clown at every opportunity." Nice wordplay. Want a little plaque that says, "Employee of the Month for Public Embarrassment"? Mr. Kobayashi frowned and asked the interpreter something, who hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, then translated. "Mr. Kobayashi would like to know if you two know each other." "Know each other? That's putting it mildly," Tyler muttered as he sat down. "We once had a public fight over a suitcase full of intimate apparel." Grace pressed her lips together. "That vibrator wasn't part of the suitcase. It just happened to fall in." "Of course. Must have been in your pocket, huh?" She let out a deadly sigh. The silence in the room grew so thick you could cut it with a plastic spoon. The executives around the table pretended to shuffle documents while casting curious glances. One of the Japanese businessmen whispered something to his colleague. The interpreter wisely chose not to translate. Tyler pulled the folder in front of him and for the first time tried to focus. But he couldn't. Because right there, at the most important meeting of the week, sat the woman who had shattered his image, his composure, and his ego. And now, like it was the most normal thing in the world, she was there taking notes with a shiny pink pen, blowing stray hairs from her face like she hadn't been the star of a viral scandal. "You should at least thank me," he whispered, eyes still on the charts. "Thank you? For what?" "For making me famous. They're calling me Lacey Tyler in the comments." She held back a laugh, but the corner of her mouth twitched. "Serves you right, that's called karma." He smiled too, even if reluctantly. "It's called grace, literally, and looks like I'll be stuck with you longer than I thought." She glanced sideways. "Maybe you'll get used to it, or maybe I'll buy another suitcase with even more glitter." Tyler tried to hide his smile, but didn't quite manage it. The meeting went on. Spreadsheets were opened, graphs explained, reports presented. But between one projection and the next, there were lingering glances, hidden sighs, and one shared realization. 2 weeks had passed since the investors' meeting. Tyler thought he'd put it all behind him. The argument in the boardroom, the viral video, the girl in the dinosaur hoodie. Especially because after that meeting, Grace had vanished, disappeared like a dismissed notification. He threw himself back into work. Numbers, control, focus. But now and then, in the quiet of the office, he still heard her voice in his head, calling him corporate banana. And for some reason, he smiled. That evening, the Santoro Group, his company, was hosting a gala at a modern art gallery downtown. It was a gathering of investors, partners, and prominent figures from the cultural scene. Tyler didn't care much about art, but as CEO, he had to show up. The receptionist announced, "The exhibit features emerging artists, all sponsored through our new creative grant program. You'll see some very original pieces." "Great. As long as none of them involve lingerie, I'm fine," he muttered, adjusting his jacket. He had no idea what fate had in store. In the third gallery room, surrounded by paintings with bold titles like Confusion in Blue and Silence of the Inner Pizza, Tyler stopped in front of a colorful, chaotic, vibrant panel. Signed in the lower right corner, Grace L. He raised an eyebrow, took a step closer, and before he could confirm if it was really her, he heard a familiar laugh. She was there. Across the room, leaning against a side table, wearing a sleek white dress, no blazer, no dinosaur hoodie, but the same messy bun on top of her head, like an unintentional trademark. She was smiling, chatting with another artist, completely unaware he was watching. Tyler crossed his arms, stopped just a few steps away. Well, who would have guessed? The queen of avocado underwear also paints. Grace froze in place. "Oh no," she muttered, turning around. "You again? Don't you have another event to ruin?" "I should be asking you that. Is this stalking? Because honestly, I'm starting to think you're just a simulation my subconscious created to drive me insane." Only if your subconscious is sponsored by my electric bill, because I'm here as a guest artist. Thanks to your company, by the way. Wait, this is yours? He pointed to the explosively chaotic painting beside them. Yes. Title, Disaster Waiting to Happen. Funny enough, it also sums up my life ever since you showed up. Tyler smiled, surprised. Before he could respond, a hurried waiter rushed between them with a tray of glasses. And of course, because the universe loves to participate in this story, he stumbled slightly. A glass flew. The red wine traced a graceful arc through the air and landed all over Grace's white dress. She looked down, then looked up. Tyler stood there, mouth open, clearly torn between laughing, running, or offering his jacket as a universal apology. Of course, she said flatly. My brand new dress is now an abstract piece. Well, if it's any comfort, it looks better now. Kind of like Dinner Panic, limited edition. Go to Hellstone. Want me to buy you another one? With how much you owe me in public humiliation, you should buy me a whole wardrobe. A small group of guests watched from a distance. One older woman whispered, I just love these modern performances. So emotional. Tyler started to laugh. Grace, trying to keep her composure, gave in and laughed too. There they were, in the middle of a serious art exhibit, laughing about wine and dresses like the world had turned into their own personal sitcom. Come here, he said, pulling her to the side of the gallery. Are you okay? She looked at her stained dress. My pride is dead, but other than that, great evening. Honestly, I don't know what's worse, your suitcase or your luck. And I don't know what's stranger, how much you annoy me or how much you make me laugh. Tyler didn't answer. He just stood there, looking at her with a calmer, less sarcastic expression. She folded her arms, suspicious. What? Nothing. Just, you're more interesting than any chart I've seen all week. She rolled her eyes. If that's a disguised flirt, you're terrible at it. I know, but it's true. The two stood in silence for a few seconds. Then, at the same time, they both started laughing again. This has been the most embarrassing night of my life, Grace muttered, trying to dab at the wine with the gallery's cloth napkin as she walked down the front steps. And that's saying something, considering you once starred in the world's most shameful suitcase moment, Tyler added, walking beside her with his hands in his pockets. Thanks for the reminder. You're like a notification that never disappears. A charming notification. An annoyingly charming notification, which makes it worse. Grace pulled her coat tighter around her, trying to hide the massive red stain shaped like a map of the U.S. on her white dress. My Uber canceled. Again, she complained, checking her phone. Seriously, this app hates me. I can give you a ride. I think I've had enough humiliation for one night, thanks. Grace, Tyler held out a hand like he was offering a peace treaty. I just don't want you getting arrested for committing fashion crimes in public. She stared at him for 3 seconds, then sighed. Fine, but no dumb comments, no cheap pickup lines, and drop me off at the door, no detours. Promise, no flirting, I'm just an emotional emergency transport service. In the car, the silence was comfortable. The kind of silence people share after arguing too much at the very start of an unlikely relationship. Tyler drove with surprising calm. Grace looked out the window, but now and then she sneaked a glance at him. He seemed different. Or maybe it was just the lighting. Or maybe the fact that he wasn't cracking any jokes about underwear or glitter. When the car stopped in front of a modest building, she unbuckled her seatbelt. Thanks for the ride. You're welcome. He looked forward, hesitating for a second. Grace, I wanted to ask you something. She frowned. If it's about the vibrator, I swear I'm getting out of the car right now. It's not, he laughed. It's something else. More professional, I think. Now I'm worried. Tyler turned to her. The creative director on my team saw your painting at the gallery. She loved it, said your style is chaotically honest. Whatever that means. Grace smiled. It means she paints like she fought the brush and won. Well, she wants to invite you to be part of our next internal design campaign. Wait, are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity. In the same place where everyone saw my vibrator accidentally fall on the treadmill? Exactly, he smiled. It's like artistic redemption. Grace went quiet for a moment. Then she tilted her head. You really want me to join your company, after everything? I do. Actually, after all the embarrassment you've already put me through, The least you can do now is redecorate the meeting room where we had our public fight. She laughed. Softly, but she laughed. Okay. Really? Yes, but on one condition. Uh-oh. That no one, absolutely no one, calls me lingerie queen in the hallways. No promises. Some folks in marketing have a sense of humor. She opened the door. Good night, Mr. Stone. Good night, Miss Thompson, and thank you for the ride and for not hitting on me. You're welcome, but if I were hitting on you, you'd know it. She closed the door, and before the car pulled away, Tyler looked in the rearview mirror. She climbed the steps 2 at a time, like she was running from the cold or from doubt. But at the last door, she turned for a moment and smiled. Grace walked into Stone Innovations on Monday morning like someone stepping into a zoo dressed as a zebra. Or at least, that's how it felt. Even though she wore a black blouse, beige slacks, and had her hair pulled back in a nearly proper bun, the classic updo holding on like a flag of independence, she knew this place breathed control and etiquette. And she was basically the opposite of that. The badge hanging around her neck swung with each quick step. Grace Thompson, Creative Associate, Strategic Design Department. It was official. She worked there now, in the same building where she'd gone viral. In the same building where the most irritating, and unfortunately, most charming man she'd ever met was the boss. Welcome to the team, said a cheerful blonde woman wearing heels, a bright pink blazer, and a permanent marketing smile. I'm Brianna, Director of Image and Content. I'll show you everything. Everything, like, literally? Grace asked, trying to sound friendly while balancing a freshly brewed capsule coffee. Literally. We've got a tour, onboarding, and even a little icebreaker game later. I love those things. Are you a Gemini? I don't know if I'm ready for this much energy before 9 a.m. You'll get used to it. We're a creative bunch, but the pressure's real. So, take a deep breath, hold on to that coffee, and follow me. On the way, Grace saw glass walls, rooms named after planets, workstations that looked like spaceships, and employees who looked like they'd just stepped out of a GQ or Tech Vogue editorial. She was definitely the odd one out, and she knew it. On the third floor, the creative room felt less intimidating. Tables with paint, tablets, scribbled boards, a place where creative chaos was tolerated, maybe even celebrated. Here's your station, Brianna said, handing her a mug that read, Yes, I'm an artist. No, I don't do free tattoos. Wow, that's too ironic to be accidental. We tried to make it look cool. Did it work? Almost. It just needs a poster of Nicolas Cage tangoing with a flamingo. I already like you, Grace. Brianna headed off to another meeting, and Grace was left alone. She turned on the computer, checked her work email. There were messages about a design campaign for the main meeting room. And of course, the person in charge of the project was listed, Tyler Stone. She took a deep breath, opened the briefing attachment, and got ready to dive into the proposal. 5 minutes later, she was yawning. It was all so technical, so full of flow charts. It felt more like a quantum physics exam. She doodled a sad cactus in the corner of her notepad just to stay awake. Very nice, said a voice behind her. Grace turned so fast she almost spilled her coffee. Tyler was leaning against the glass divider, arms crossed, his dark gray suit free of glitter this time, but with the same cynical yet curious look in his eyes. Oh, great. You again, she said, moving the coffee away from potential accidents. I work here, remember? I'm trying to forget. You've shown up more than my bank notifications. I came to see how the new hire is dealing with corporate chaos. Chaos I can handle, but this briefing? It's graphic terrorism. Tyler stepped closer and glanced at her notebook. Is that a crying cactus? It's a symbol of my soul trying to make sense of this neutral-toned color palette you all love so much. He laughed. Really laughed. You're impossible, Grace, and you're ridiculously organized. Do you guys even line up your paper clips by color here? Only the gold ones. They're the leaders of the clips. She laughed too, in spite of herself. Are you going to ask me to paint the meeting room with the names of your investors or something? No, I want something with identity, something that shows life, like your painting at the gallery. Grace looked the CEO in the eye. He was serious, and once again she could see that behind the sarcasm was someone genuinely curious, and maybe a little less of a corporate drone than she liked to tell herself. I can try, she said, looking at the screen with a bit more respect. Great. Oh, and here it comes. There's a meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. with the branding team. There'll be coffee and muffins. Muffins with cream cheese frosting. Okay, now I'm more motivated. He started to walk away but paused at the door. And Grace, he called, without fully turning around. If you spill paint on the upstairs carpet, just give me a heads up. The cleaning crew charges double when they call it conceptual art. She raised an eyebrow. If I throw paint on the carpet, it'll have your name on it. He blinked. Fair enough, and walked out. Grace looked at the computer, then at the cactus she had drawn. She picked up her pencil and added a smile. That evening, while Tyler was reviewing contracts, he found himself smiling, thinking about the sad cactus. Grace was chaos, but a kind of chaos that made sense. And even he, the control-obsessed CEO, was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, disorder had its own charm. Grace arrived early to the meeting room, determined to make a good impression. She wore a black dress with subtle stripes and white sneakers, her hair partly tied back with a simple ribbon, and carried a folder with new sketches. For the first time since joining Stone Innovations, she felt almost prepared. Almost. Because nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for what happened in the next 5 minutes. "Hi. You must be Grace, right?" The suitcase girl said, a bright, cheerful voice. Grace slowly turned around. Standing in the doorway was a woman in a perfect navy blazer, nude heels, wavy blonde hair, and magazine-level makeup. She held out her hand with the kind of smile that said she'd already won the game before it started. "I'm Vanessa, Tyler's ex." Silence. Grace blinked 3 times, swallowed hard. "Nice to meet you. I'm Grace, former owner of the suitcase that became world famous." Vanessa laughed, like it was the most adorable thing anyone could say. "Oh, I saw the video. You were hilarious. That part when the vibrator rolled on the floor? Iconic." Grace smiled with the politeness of someone holding a coffee cup full of liquid dynamite. "Glad my embarrassment could provide some international entertainment." "Don't worry. Everyone here talks about it fondly. You're kind of an in-house celebrity. By the way, did you know Tyler got really upset about the online comments? He wanted to sue half the internet." Grace raised an eyebrow. "What a gentleman." "Yeah, he's always been that intense, in a good way. But also very loyal, you know? Protective. I think that's why we always had this really strong connection." She touched her hair delicately. "You two broke up a while ago?" Grace asked, already regretting it. "About 3 months. It was mutual. But now we're working together again. Funny coincidence, right?" Grace bit the inside of her cheek. "Coincidence? Sure." The room started to fill up. Employees took their seats with laptops, muffins, and coffee mugs. Tyler walked in, punctual as always, and paused for a split second when he saw Vanessa sitting right next to Grace. "Vanessa, you're here?" "Surprise," she laughed. "I was brought in to help with the branding redesign. It's a temporary role, but the impact will be lasting." He blinked, clearly surprised. "I didn't know." "Neither did I," Grace muttered beside him. Tyler pulled himself together, walked to the head of the table and adjusted some papers. "Okay, everyone. Let's begin." Throughout the meeting, Vanessa kept chiming in with enthusiastic comments, light jokes, and compliments about Tyler's amazing aesthetic sense. Grace took deep breaths with every "Tyler is incredible," and that's just how Tyler is. Then at the end of the presentation, Tyler asked, "Grace, could you show the drafts for the main wall panel?" Grace stood up. She walked to the whiteboard and pinned the sheets with colorful magnets. "The idea is to create a visual identity that reflects the company's dynamic nature without losing the human touch. So I went with organic textures, colors that suggest movement, and a few powerful phrases gathered from interviews with our own staff." She pointed to the center. "This is the main piece. Where there is chaos, there is creativity." A quote that, honestly, represents me more than I'd like to admit. Some team members nodded. Vanessa crossed her arms. "Interesting. Very conceptual. Though I wonder if maybe it's a bit too sentimental?" Grace turned her head slowly. "The concept is based on feedback from the creative team." "Of course, but still, maybe we should aim for something more clean? Commercial? Or maybe we should remember that being too clean can end up feeling empty. And maybe being too sentimental might come across as unprofessional." The room fell silent. Tyler cleared his throat. "Grace's ideas are aligned with the company's new direction, and I like how genuine it feels. Let's give her proposal a chance." Vanessa gave a tight smile. then sat back down. Let's play a little game with people who only read the comments. Type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who made it this far will get it. Now back to the story. Grace looked at Tyler for half a second. He didn't say a word, but his eyes said plenty. After the meeting, Grace slipped into the break room to grab some coffee and breathe. She was so distracted, she almost poured sugar into the salt. "You okay?" a voice asked behind her. It was Tyler. Being called an amateur by the boss's ex in front of 15 people? Totally fine. Happens every Monday. I swear I had no idea she was coming. HR made that call. Right, just another coincidence. Grace? No, it's fine. Really. She gave a brief smile. I just need more coffee, or a shot of tequila, or maybe an acting class to learn how to pretend I don't want to stick my head in the microwave. Tyler chuckled. Hey, you nailed the presentation. That quote in the middle? I loved it. Where there's chaos, there's creativity? Yeah, that pretty much sums you up. Is that a compliment? It's more than it sounds. Grace sighed, then after a second smiled back. Well, since you liked it, maybe I'll paint it on the meeting room wall, in neon pink, with glitter. Only if it's biodegradable glitter. Obviously, I'm chaotic, not careless. They both laughed, and then, in that unexpected moment between coffee mugs and jokes, something shifted. Things got quieter, closer. Grace, would you like to? Tyler started, but he was interrupted by Brianna, who burst in, flustered. Tyler, we need you in the studio, right now. The pilot project photo shoot started with no photographer and a sick model. It's chaos, literally. Tyler rolled his eyes. You've got to be kidding me. Come on. You're the only one who can keep this from turning into an episode of Bosses in Panic. He turned to Grace, clearly reluctant. I'll see you later. Only if there aren't any more exes in your way. She's the last one, I promise. He left. Grace stayed there, stirring her coffee, thinking about that mural quote, about the look in his eyes, and about how, even with Vanessa in the picture, there was something between them that even sarcasm couldn't hide. The next morning, Grace could barely sip her coffee without spilling. Vanessa's sudden appearance still lingered in her mind, but it was the note Tyler had left on her desk that really left her confused. If you survive the workday, dinner's on me. No exes, no spilled wine, no awkward surprises, just dinner. Tea. She stared at the paper for the 5th time. It was ironic, straightforward, and strangely sweet. But before she could decide whether to say yes, Tyler appeared at the door of the creative room. Forget the dinner. What, you're going to need a whole weekend to forgive me, he said with that crooked smile, half charm, half chaos. I'm heading to this event on a ranch in the countryside. It's got art, business people, investors, and horses more expensive than most apartments. And I want you to come with me. Sorry, what? You want me to go to a ranch with you? It's a corporate event disguised as an artistic retreat. You're the only artist I know who isn't afraid to put glitter on a PowerPoint. I need your opinion. Maybe your company too. And why would I say yes? He pulled a small container from his backpack, opened it. Handmade chocolate truffles with Belgian sprinkles, made by me, or my chef. But the thought is what counts. She crossed her arms. This is emotional bribery with chocolate. Does it work? Grace took the truffle. It works. 2 hours later, Tyler's car was cruising down the road smoothly. The air conditioning was just right. The soundtrack was a mix of soft jazz and Grace's sarcastic comments about the GPS mispronouncing her name as Grassa. Don't you think this is kind of weird? She asked. We barely know each other, and now we're heading to a ranch together. It's like the start of a reality show that's about to go wrong. Well, every good relationship starts with a terrible idea, and this is only the second worst one we've had. The first being? Fighting over a suitcase in the middle of the airport like it was a prize on The Price is Right. She laughed. Okay, fair. The mood was light. For the first time since all the chaos began, Grace felt oddly at ease with Tyler. He wasn't in CEO mode. He was just himself, talking about movies, childhood, and that time he accidentally ate dog food thinking it was cereal. She laughed for 10 straight minutes. But as every good story goes, it's in moments like this that the universe decides to test the main characters. The car sputtered. What was that? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Nothing, just the engine hiccuping. It's emotional. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. The car coughed, shook, and died. Okay, now it's in a coma. Tyler pulled over onto a dirt shoulder between two fields and a whole lot of nothing. Are you serious? Grace got out, looking around. There's not even a cell signal here. Are we in 2025 or a lost episode of Little House on the Haunted Hill? Tyler popped the hood. He stared at the engine like he knew what he was doing. He didn't. I'll figure it out, he said, sounding confident. You gonna talk to the engine? Because if that's the plan, I'm all in. 20 minutes later, and one emergency call made by a lady at the nearest cheese shop. Yes, really, the solution was simple. Wait for the tow truck and find shelter. That's when they found the Recanto de Serra Inn, a rustic, charming, and surprisingly pretty place, with flowers in the windows, the smell of cake in the air, and a woman named Dona Naide who looked like she'd stepped out of a butter commercial. 2 rooms? Dona Naide asked, smiling. Yes, please, they said at the same time. She checked her little notebook. Oh, sweethearts, I only have 1 room left, a double. Oh no, Grace murmured. It's fine, we'll share, Tyler said. Like heck we will. Do you snore? Not that I know of, and if I do, you can hit me with a pillow. It'll be fun. Grace looked at the woman, then at the empty road outside, and sighed. Fine, but if you cross over to my side of the bed, I'm throwing you out the window. Deal. The room was simple. 1 double bed, a floral comforter, an old dresser, and a small bathroom with flower-shaped soap. Grace went in first, dropped her backpack on one side of the bed, and opened the window. Never thought I'd end up on a farm with a corporate banana, sharing a room and using flower soap. Life's full of surprises, Tyler said, taking off his jacket. By the way, did you bring pajamas? Why? Because mine have sharks on them. Just giving you time to mentally prepare. She laughed. That night, they had corn cake and milk coffee on the inn's porch under a ridiculously beautiful starry sky that looked like CGI. Do you regret coming? He asked, looking out at the horizon. No, but I still don't forgive you about the Brigadeiro. Which part? Using it to convince you or the Belgian sprinkles? Both. Then I'll have to level up. How about brownie with caramel sauce? She smiled and stayed quiet for a few seconds. Tyler, why did you really ask me to come? Because I wanted to spend time with you, away from meetings, ex-girlfriends popping up, and flying vibrators. She looked at him. He wasn't joking. I like you, Grace, and I know we started off on the wrong foot, actually both feet in a puddle of awkward. But still, I like your mess. She blushed. She wasn't ready for that. Is that the wine talking, or are you really being sweet? Both, but mostly just me. In bed that night, a pillow separated them, literally. But in the dark, hearing his breathing slow, Grace smiled to herself. Because maybe, just maybe, the chaos was finally starting to make sense. Breakfast at the inn started off calm, almost civilized. Tyler was in a sweatshirt, barefoot, flipping pancakes like he worked at a farm hotel. Grace, still sleepy, wore a sweater with a faded bunny on the front and stared at a jar of jam like it was a tough math problem. You do know no one here asked for pancakes, right? She said, resting her chin in her hand. I know, cooking calms me down, and you sleep with your knees digging into my back. That stresses me out. I told you I move around a lot in my sleep. Moving is one thing. Performing an advanced karate kata at 3 a.m. is another. Grace smiled. He placed a pancake on her plate, then one on his. Strawberry or Brigadeiro? I don't trust you in your manipulative sweets anymore. Then Brigadeiro it is. They sat there eating in the inn's shared kitchen like normal people, like they weren't a CEO and an artist who started off hating each other over a suitcase full of underwear. But of course, peace never lasts long. The farm event started at exactly 10. It was a huge space, with barns turned into makeshift galleries, sculptures scattered across perfect lawns, tables with white linen cloths, waiters in straw hats, and wine glasses that cost more than Grace's rent. She tried to look discreet as she walked among the guests. This is all a bit too fancy, she murmured, adjusting her hair. You look great, Tyler said beside her, wearing a light gray blazer and an observant expression. Just try not to knock anything over. It happened once, just once, and now I'm known as the panel destroyer. You knocked over a Biennale panel. That's quite the resume. Grace stuck out her tongue. Tyler laughed, but he was soon called over by one of his investors. She stood there alone, trying not to look out of place. That's when disaster struck. She brushed against a support board of a huge panel, a modernist piece worth tens of thousands of dollars, which of course was balanced on a wobbly easel. The wood creaked, the panel wobbled, and in slow motion crashed to the stone floor with a loud thud. "No!" someone shouted. "Oh my God!" Grace covered her mouth. Not again. People gathered. A bald man with a silk scarf around his neck and the expression of someone who had just lost a child yelled, "That piece was insured for $80,000. Grace was frozen, until Tyler pushed through the crowd. "What happened?" She slowly raised her hand. "I touched it by accident. I didn't mean to. I thought it was a bench." "A bench, Grace?" "It was wooden, shaped like a bench. It looked comfortable." The artist looked at her like he was about to faint. "That wood came from a dismantled chapel in Bruges." "Oh, I didn't know Belgium made such dangerous furniture." The artist huffed and turned his back. Grace was about to cry, or run, or dig a hole and live in it. But before she could, an elegant older woman approached her, holding a glass of red wine. "Dear, are you all right?" "I don't know. Physically, yes. Mentally, I'm in ruins." "That's exactly what the piece represents," the woman said, pointing to the broken panel on the ground. "The collapse of structure, the impermanence of form, the inner chaos of emotion. It's sublime." I'm Margaret Delacroix, art critic for Artsy International. That was brilliant, authentic, raw. I'd love to interview you." Grace blinked. Tyler, beside her, stood with his mouth slightly open. You're serious?" "Of course. I'm writing your name down. Grace, right? Grace L.? That's right, Grace L. for lunacy." As the critic walked away, delighted by the mess, Tyler grabbed Grace's arm and pulled her aside, laughing. "Do you realize what just happened? I broke art and saved the event with charm? You knocked a board to the floor and ended up with an international review. That's like modern witchcraft. Add it to my resume, panel destroyer and praise magnet." They laughed. They were alone now, behind the main building, overlooking the field. "You know," he began, "you surprise me all the time. Sometimes I don't even understand myself. And that's kind of charming." The mood shifted. It grew quiet. Still, Tyler took a step closer, then another. Grace looked at him. The wind played with her hair. He raised his hand, touched a strand. "May I?" he asked. She didn't answer. She just stood there, breathing deeply. Almost. But then, of course, an intern tripped and yelled, "Watch the wine," seconds before a splash hit an investor's white suit. Grace, on impulse, ran with napkins and saved the day. Tyler, standing there, sighed. "Almost," he murmured. Later, sitting on the farmhouse porch with 2 glasses of juice and his shirt stained with grape, she said, "Today was intense. You broke a piece of art, cleaned an investor's suit with napkins, saved the networking event of the year, and you took my breath away for 5 seconds. She glanced sideways at him. "And you, corporate banana, were actually kind of helpful. That's what I get for wiping wine off an investor, helpful? And maybe a kiss. But not today. I've hit my chaos quota." Tyler laughed. "So, tomorrow?" She smiled. "Maybe tomorrow." The ride back from the farm was quiet, but not the awkward kind. It was a peaceful silence, as if the words had already been said through laughter, spilled wine, a nearly kiss, and artistic chaos. Grace looked out the window, her eyes following the trees as they passed. Tyler, driving, glanced at her now and then. There were still traces of paint on her hand, and he loved that. "Can I ask you something?" She broke the silence. "You're already asking. Have you always been like this, so hard to read?" "Only when I don't want to be read." She looked at him. "And now, do you?" Tyler thought for a moment. "I do, but I'm afraid of what you'll think when you finish the book." Grace gave a small smile. "If it's bad, I'll just scribble in a new dedication." When they got back to the city, they each went their separate ways, but the distance was only physical. They kept sending silly texts, memes, and little inside jokes born from crooked sculptures and wine mishaps. Then, 2 days later, a phone call changed everything. Grace got a call from Margaret Delacroix, the art critic who had seen her knock over a display and somehow save her reputation with charm and chaos. "Grace, darling, I've got a last-minute opening for an international exhibit in Florence. I need a fresh, bold name. You." "You're serious?" "Absolutely. 3 months. A paid studio. European mentors. Top galleries. This is your chance to break through." Grace hung up in a daze. 3 months in Italy. 3 months away from overdue rent, her dinosaur sweatshirt, and the controlled chaos at Stone Innovations. 3 months away from Tyler. That night, she found him on the company's rooftop. He was facing away, looking out over the skyline. "Did you know the sky over New York can look blue but still feel gray when you're unsure?" she said. "Is that poetry or a hint?" "Both." Tyler turned and leaned against the glass railing. "The critic called, didn't she?" "She did." "So, gonna go paint the world?" "She wants me to go to Florence. 3 months." Tyler didn't answer. "It's a huge opportunity for me," she continued. "But I also have this job now, and I have you, and all of this. Don't put me on the scale with Florence, Grace. I'm just an airport accident." She took a deep breath. "You're not just that." "Then what am I?" Grace walked closer. "Close. Really close. You're the first person who's really seen me in a long time, and that scares me more than flying across the world." The wind picked up, but neither of them moved. "I should be telling you to go," he said, voice rough, "because I know you deserve this. But if I'm being completely honest—" He raised a hand and touched her face. "I don't want you to go." She didn't answer with words. She just leaned in, slowly, like she was afraid to ruin it. Tyler didn't wait any longer. He kissed her. It started soft, like they were testing what this was. But it quickly turned into something inevitable, intense, filled with everything they hadn't said. It felt like every argument, every laugh, every accident between them had led to that moment. When they finally pulled apart, eyes still closed, Grace leaned her forehead against his. "This complicates things. This is the simplest thing we've done." She gave a nervous laugh. "I'm scared, Tyler." "Me too." "So now what?" "Now you decide. Go to Florence or stay here." "That's it?" "No." He looked into her eyes. "If you go, I'll wait. If you stay, I'll hold on." She didn't say a word. Her heart was pounding like a runaway drum. The New York sky stayed gray, but for the first time it seemed to shine just a little differently. Her bag was packed, her ticket printed, her heart torn in two. Grace walked through the airport terminal with her earbuds in but no music playing. Every step echoed like a warning that everything was about to change. 3 months, Florence, art, recognition, and Tyler left behind. She reread his last few messages as she waited at the gate. "Tyler, you're a wildfire I never saw coming. Go shine, but come back. Grace, wait for me. And don't forget me, not even for a second. Forgetting you would be like forgetting how to breathe." She sighed. Boarding began. In the window seat on Flight 2345 to Florence, she looked out at the sky and wished more than anything that she was making the right choice. Back in New York, Tyler couldn't focus on anything. Meetings felt too long, charts didn't matter. Time, without Grace, had slowed. Or maybe he just noticed the silence more. He missed her, even in the quiet, and he didn't know how long he could pretend everything was fine. The morning after Grace's flight, Tyler got a call from Mr. Kobayashi. "Mr. Stone, we have a situation." "A situation?" "A Japanese investor saw the video of Miss Grace at the exhibit. He says he wants an art program led by her at our Kyoto branch." Tyler choked on his coffee. "Sorry, what?" "He wants her. In Kyoto, leading our brand's culture and innovation initiative. They're willing to fund the entire program. But it's non-negotiable. Either she accepts, or there's no deal." Tyler stood up, pacing the room. She just flew to Florence. Then perhaps it's time to bring her back, or at least offer her the real choice. In Italy, Grace was discovering a whole new world. The studio they offered her was filled with light from tall windows, old easels, and the scent of fresh paint. The mentors spoke with thick accents, and the coffee tasted like liquid poetry. She felt alive, finally seen as an artist. But every time her brush touched the canvas, Tyler would come to mind. In the 3rd week, she began a series called Imperfect Impressions. It was about unlikely meetings, mixed-up baggage, and how chaos can sometimes be the beginning of something beautiful. Each painting was really about him. At the end of the month, while sketching in the fading evening light, she got a call. "Grace L?" "Yes, who's calling?" "Kobayashi Group. We'd like to invite you to lead an art and innovation program at our Kyoto headquarters." Grace sat down, trying to take it in. Is this real?" "Yes, but we'll need your answer soon. We have a decision deadline this Friday." "Oh, and by the way, the invitation came from a personal recommendation by Mr. Tyler Stone." She was silent. Her heart was racing. Tyler was still behind the scenes. He hadn't given up on her. And somehow, he was opening more doors than she ever imagined. But now, she had to choose. Stay and finish the program she loved, or begin something even bigger, knowing he was the one who made it possible. Across the ocean, Tyler felt the emptiness growing. He started writing a letter, one he might never send, but he had to put it into words. Grace, if you're reading this, it's because some part of you still carries me in the coat pocket where you keep coins and hidden memories. I know you love this life. If I were you, I would too. But if by any chance you're tired or looking for something more, something new, something ours, the door here is still open. The company too. And my heart, well, I don't even have to say it. With love, and more longing than I can handle, Tyler. He printed it, folded it, slipped it into an envelope, and waited. Waited for her to feel the same. That night, Grace walked through the narrow streets of Florence, holding the envelope she'd just received. There was no return address, but she knew the handwriting. It was him. She read the letter 3 times, and cried each time. Go back? Go to Japan? Stay? What was right? What was real? The next morning, she went to the program coordinator, asked for early leave, citing an offer she couldn't refuse. That same afternoon, she boarded a flight to New York, not to say yes, but to say everything she needed to say. Tyler was at a conference when his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages, calls, alerts, he ignored them all. Until, during a break, one of his assistants said, "Mr. Stone, there's someone waiting for you on the rooftop." He went up, slowly, and there she was, hair loose, an olive green coat, and that same look in her eyes, the kind people have after making a hard decision. Grace? You sent a letter. You read it 3 times. Silence. The wind blew. She walked toward him, handed him an envelope. My answer. Tyler opened it, a blank sheet of paper. He looked at her, puzzled. It means I want to start from scratch, with you, no script, no frame, just us. He pulled her closer, and right there, on the rooftop where they'd said goodbye weeks earlier, they kissed. But this time, no interruptions, no accidents, no almost. It was real. It was love. The new creative department at Stone Innovations was born in record time, thanks to Grace. With her artistic vision and bold style, she reshaped the department that had barely gotten any attention. She launched cultural projects tied to tech, installed interactive art in the company's main hall, and one Monday morning, she made the executives attend a watercolor workshop. Art isn't just beautiful, it's strategic, she said, holding a brush with paint on her fingers. When we stop trying to control everything, the best ideas come out. Tyler, across the room, pretended to hate it all, but deep down, he was amazed. Grace shook things up, questioned the reports, rewrote the rules, and he, the master of control, was starting to enjoy the chaos, until the past came knocking. In the form of Harrison Clegg, Tyler's former business partner. The kind of man who could turn a room into a boxing ring just by smiling. He walked into the company headquarters in a perfectly tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase and the year's most toxic news. I'm buying 22% of the company's shares. You can't be serious, Tyler said. Oh, I am, and I brought gifts. Clegg pulled out a dossier, with photos, reports, video screenshots. Here's the public image of Stone, a secretary with a vibrator in her bag, a CEO involved with an employee, and an art exhibit where wine flies over shareholders. Beautiful image, poetic, but terrible for business. Grace walked into the room at that very moment. She stopped at the doorway, listening to everything. Tyler slowly closed the file. What do you want, Harrison? A seat on the board, and a promise that the company will return to what it once was, clean, efficient, profitable, no messy artists, no airport news. Grace stepped forward. I can leave the company, if that's what it takes to save what you've built. Tyler stood up. No, absolutely not. You may not have a choice. Clegg smiled. Most of the investors have already approved my return. The final vote is in 2 days. Out on the terrace, the same view as weeks ago. But now, silence. Tyler stared at the city. Grace watched him. The cold wind made her hair dance. I don't want to be the reason you fall, she said, and I don't want to live in a world where you're not here. She gave a sad smile. Maybe we need some time, until everything settles. Grace, she gently placed her hand on his face. Shh, kiss me, and promise you won't hate me for trying to protect what you've built. He didn't reply, he just kissed her. With the urgency of someone who knows time is short, with the intensity of someone who doesn't want to say goodbye. And when they pulled apart, he knew. That kiss wasn't a goodbye. It was a pause. 2 days later, the vote took place. Tyler, standing before the board, defended Grace with every word he could find. He showed the numbers, the creative growth, the cultural impact. Let's play a little game for the comment skimmers. Type chocolate in the comments. Only those who read this far will get it. Now, back to the story. But the numbers were still young, and Clegg knew how to play the game. The final result was close. Harrison Clegg was back, with the power to fire and a promise. Grace would be out by the end of the week. That night, Tyler went to her makeshift studio. It was empty, except for a blank canvas and a note. I know you fought. Now it's my turn to fight from here. If I'm just a distraction, then you need to find your focus again. But if I'm part of your vision, wait for me. I'll find a way. G. He sat there, on the floor, next to the blank canvas, not knowing if what he felt was anger, longing, or pride. Grace left the company, but she didn't disappear. She took a position as an independent curator at a cultural center in the city. She created exhibits, built partnerships, and, little by little, her name became a symbol of creative innovation. And one day, without warning, she showed up at the company headquarters, not to ask for her job back, but to present a proposal. I want to use one of Stone's abandoned spaces to create a hub for artistic innovation. It'll generate positive media, attract younger audiences, and help reverse the damage from a certain viral lingerie video. Clegg laughed. You've got nerve. I do. And you've got a PR problem. Do we have a deal? Surprisingly, he agreed. But with one condition: she couldn't have any direct involvement with Tyler, and she accepted, for now. At the opening of the new space, the press showed up. Numbers soared, and Grace's name was once again linked to Stone, not as a scandal, but as a success. Tyler watched from afar, proud, silent. She was still the chaos in his order, and he was the structure in her freedom. But they were still apart, until something happened. Night had fallen over New York with an odd stillness, the kind of silence that comes just before a storm. Tyler Stone was finishing reports at the Stone Innovations headquarters when his phone buzzed. An anonymous message. Check contract 384Z in the external projects folder. Clegg isn't who he seems, X. Tyler frowned. It was late. He was tired. But the contract number caught his attention. It wasn't just any project. It was one Clegg had personally introduced. A discreet deal with European investors. Tyler hadn't had direct access, just approved it formally, trusting the new partner. He got up from his chair and went to the company's digital files. After a few clicks, he found the folder. Contract 384Z was there, and with it, 2 hidden, encrypted attachments. Tyler knew how to decrypt. 3 coffees, 2 system crashes, and 1 shout of, "Come on, seriously," later, the files opened. He froze. Emails between Clegg and a shell company. Embezzlement. Transfers to a Cayman Islands account. Fake documents with Grace's digital signature. Tyler's blood ran cold. This is serious. This is criminal. This is a setup. The next morning, Tyler went straight to the cultural center where Grace worked. She was in a room with children, guiding them through a mural made of collage and recycled paper. She wore a denim jumpsuit, barefoot, fully focused. He hated interrupting scenes like that. But there was no time. Grace, she turned slowly. Her expression changed the moment she saw his face. Tyler? I need to talk to you, now. Minutes later, they were alone in the ceramics room. The air was filled with the smell of damp clay and fresh paint. Someone's trying to set you up, he said, getting straight to the point. They used your signature on a fake company contract. Grace went pale. What do you mean? Clegg created a fake project, laundered money through it, and he listed you as a co-author. If this gets out, you could end up in jail, and the company could fall apart. She gripped the work table, took a deep breath. This is serious. Do you have proof? I've got everything. But if we go straight to the police, he might cover his tracks. We need to be smart. What do you want to do? Tyler hesitated. Set up an internal operation, just the 2 of us. Like old times, but this time, for real. She crossed her arms. You still trust me after everything? I don't just trust you, I need you, because if there's one person who can see beyond the obvious, it's you, she smiled briefly. Okay, let's take down the corporate villain, again. The next few days were a whirlwind. Tyler dug into internal records. Grace teamed up with a hacker friend to trace Clegg's transactions. They met at night in the company's old abandoned studio, took turns sleeping, ate cold pizza, laughed at old memes to lighten the mood. It felt like a nerdy, desperate version of Bonnie and Clyde. But the real danger was still ahead. Early Friday morning, Grace's hacker brought the final piece of evidence. Clegg is trying to sell part of the company to a competing multinational, illegally. The paperwork's already prepped. He's trying to destroy Stone from the inside and make a profit, Tyler said, stunned. Grace looked at him. If we take this to the board tomorrow, everything changes, or we lose everything. But together. Always together. They looked at each other. And in that moment, they weren't just partners in a scheme. They were partners in life. Tyler stepped forward. So did she. No words, just certainty. They kissed. And this time the world could have fallen apart around them. They wouldn't have noticed. The next morning, an emergency board meeting was called. Everyone was there. Even Clegg, in his $3,000 suit and smug look, ready for victory. Tyler stood up, handed out printed copies to the board, explained every move, pointed to the accounts, the forged documents. Then he played a video. A recorded conversation between Clegg and his accomplice. Clear, undeniable. Clegg tried to object, but it was too late. The vote was unanimous. Immediate removal, holding arrest, federal investigation. Grace, standing at the back of the room, took a deep breath. She was free, and more than that, vindicated. In the days that followed, Stone's atmosphere shifted. The company reinvented itself. Investors came back. Its reputation was restored, and in the middle of it all, their love grew. They had lunch together, discussed art and tech projects, spent Sundays watching old movies and critiquing the costumes. Tyler changed, he became lighter. Grace changed, she became more confident. And then came the final surprise. One sunny Saturday, Tyler took Grace to a clearing outside the city. There was a cottage, a blank canvas set up in the yard, and dozens of photos of them hanging from string lines. She smiled, suspicious. "What's all this?" "A gift, but with one condition." He got down on one knee, pulled a small box from his pocket. "Grace L., you brought back my sanity by turning my life upside down. You made me laugh on the worst days, and you showed me that love can begin with a luggage mix-up at the airport. Tyler, will you be the official artist of my life, my permanent partner, my wife?" Grace laughed through tears. "Only if the wedding cake has glitter." "Done." "Then..." Yes, they kissed, again, and this time, it was forever. The invitation said it all. Grace and Tyler invite you to the most unlikely, unpredictable, and incredibly romantic wedding of the year. Date, Saturday. Location, a countryside farm. Dress code, casual chic or artist-inspired. Yes, even dinosaur sweatshirts are welcome. It was perfectly them. The sun shone over the green fields where it all began. The same place where the car broke down, where they accidentally shared a room, where the first, almost kiss hung in the air. Now, decorated with string lights, art panels made by Grace, and a hay-covered aisle draped in white fabric, it was ready for the biggest moment of their lives. Grace looked out at the setup from the window of the farmhouse, wearing a robe embroidered with "Chaotic Bride" on the back. Her dress, hanging behind her, was anything but traditional, a mix of tulle, lace, and glitter. Lots of glitter. "You're going to outshine the decorations, girl," said Lori, her maid of honor and former co-worker from the cultural center. "That's the plan," Grace replied, smiling nervously. "Either shine or faint. Let's see which one comes first." "Are you scared?" Grace sighed. "No. It just feels too good to be true, you know?" "You deserve good things, Grace, and so does he." You two found each other in the middle of chaos and turned it into poetry. Poetry with flying underwear. Both of them burst out laughing. On the other side of the farm, Tyler was adjusting his tie in front of an old mirror. Beside him stood James, his best friend and now best man, watching with a half-amused expression. "Man, you've pitched to billionaire investors, closed deals with tough Japanese negotiators, even faced off with Clegg in a war room, and you're sweating over a yes? It's not the yes. It's what comes after. It's forever. Relax. If you survive that lingerie show at the airport, you can handle anything." Tyler chuckled. "I love that woman, James. She turned my world upside down, and I've never been more sure of anything." "Then let's go. Time to say that with a kiss," James said, patting him on the back. Guests had started arriving. There were people in suits and ties, and others in colorful outfits. Some wore formal attire. Others had on crochet dresses and oversized sunglasses. One older woman wore a blouse with a vibrator print. An older gentleman wore a t-shirt that read, "I saw the suitcase fight. I was Team Grace." The straw chairs were arranged in a semicircle. A string quartet rehearsed quietly, blending Beethoven with instrumental pop songs. And then the unexpected happened. It rained. Yes, right in the middle of a clear sky and cheerful forecasts, one sneaky cloud made its appearance. The first drops came gently. Within seconds, it turned into a downpour. "No!" Grace shouted from the window, watching the flower arrangement sway in the wind. "Let's move to the barn," someone yelled. The event team sprang into action. Guests got up, some laughing, others desperately shielding their hairstyles. Tyler, standing at the makeshift altar, simply opened his arms and looked up at the sky. "Of course this would happen," he said with a smile. Half an hour later, everyone was inside the renovated barn. The lights were on, hay bales turned into last-minute seats, and the altar was rebuilt with floral curtains and Grace's paintings in the background. Tyler stood in the center, shoes a little muddy and hair slightly damp. Still, he looked like the happiest man in the world. The music began, an instrumental version of "Can't Help Falling in Love," and then she walked in. Grace walked beside her mother, holding a bouquet made of dried flowers and paintbrushes. Her dress sparkled, her smile was shy, and her eyes said everything. She stopped in front of Tyler. "Thought you were going to be late," he whispered. "I'm the bride. I had to be late so you'd wait for me." The officiant smiled. "We are gathered here today." But no one really heard the rest of the sentence, because the looks, the memories, the feelings, they were all there, in the silence between the two of them. The most important moment wasn't the speech. It was what they felt. When it was time for vows, Grace spoke first. "I promise to keep knocking things over and messing up schedules and reminding you that life without art is just a pretty routine. I promise I'll laugh at your spreadsheets and sneak glitter into your pockets when you least expect it. I promise to be me, but with you." Tyler took a deep breath. "I promise to stop trying to control the world and let you surprise me every day. I promise to protect you from criticism, from doubts, and from any surprise vibrators. I promise to be your ground while you fly." They both laughed. The officiant held back a laugh too. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss." They kissed, and this time, it was for good. The party was a whole event of its own. Grace had set up a dance floor with colorful projections. Tyler organized a drink bar with names like Love Contract, Stolen Kisses, and Confused Caipirinha. There was karaoke, there was cake with edible glitter, there was a lady who fell into the pool and said she was baptizing the wedding. There was dancing till the floor, yes, even Mr. Kobayashi. And late into the night, something more happened. Tyler took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need 5 minutes of your attention." Everyone turned to look. When I met Grace, I was rushing toward what I thought was success. And she made me trip. Literally. And in that stumble, I found everything. Today, I want to share something many of you weren't expecting. Everyone held their breath. Starting next month, I'm stepping down as CEO of Stone Innovations. Some guests exchanged surprised looks, because I'm starting a new company, a blend of art and business, and its name will be Stone and Grace. Applause erupted. Grace was crying and laughing. At the same time, he reached out his hand. "All we need is one more partner, and someone I love who's crazy enough to join me." She stepped onto the stage and kissed him hard. "Wherever you go, I'll go, but on one condition." "What's that?" "No more wrong suitcases, ever again." They laughed and kissed again. Grace and Tyler's life after marriage was anything but traditional. There was more glitter than self-help books, more spilled coffee than candlelit dinners, and a weekly schedule filled with artist meetings and brainstorming sessions in bed, with popcorn and chocolate fudge. But there was love. So much love. And one ordinary morning, with the sound of the coffee maker in the background and Grace rummaging through the fridge looking for something sour with chocolate, everything changed. "Tyler," she called from the kitchen. "Huh? This is weird. What is?" "I'm craving pickles, with sweetened condensed milk." Silence. "You're joking, right?" "Nope, and there's more. I cried today because I saw a video of a duck chasing a puppy, and I hate ducks." Tyler showed up at the door with one eyebrow raised. "You mean to say?" "I don't know," she answered, eyes wide, "but my app says I'm 5 days late." And my boobs hurt like I just ran a marathon without a bra. Silence, a glance, a flash of panic, then one of hope. Should we buy a test? He asked. Now, the silence in the bathroom was as thick as steam in a sauna. Grace paced back and forth. Tyler leaned against the door, holding the test box like it was sacred. 3 minutes, right? It's already been 5. Go check. You look. You're the one who peed on it. She sighed, took a deep breath, and grabbed the test. 2 lines. Tyler's eyes widened. That means, I'm pregnant. We're pregnant. A few seconds of silence. Then he rushed to her, picked her up, and spun her in the air. Grace laughed, cried, and held the test like a trophy. Oh my God, we're having a baby. We're having a little walking chaos. At the first doctor's appointment, the doctor smiled right after the ultrasound. Are you ready to know? Tyler squeezed Grace's hand like they were on a roller coaster. It's a boy. Grace looked at the screen, then at her husband. The sound of the baby's heartbeat filled the room. A boy, she repeated, teary-eyed. A little boy. A mini Tyler with messy hair and a flair for drama, he added. A baby with an artist's soul and a CEO's calendar. Dangerous. They laughed, and left the appointment arm in arm, already debating names. Nothing too common, but nothing that sounds like a perfume either. Agreed. And nothing that rhymes with panties. That's important. The baby shower couldn't be normal, not with them. The theme? Mission Impossible, diapers and love. All the guests wore black with dark sunglasses. The decor was a mix of Hollywood and baby gear. There was a gourmet chocolate truffle station, another with mini diapers filled with candy, and a game called Guess If It's a Diaper or a Wrapped Chocolate. When it was time for the name reveal, a drone flew down from the ceiling carrying a banner. Welcome to the world, Oliver Stone. Sounds kinda like a movie director's name, Grace said. Perfect, Tyler replied. He'll direct the wildest story of our lives. In the weeks that followed, they dove into baby shopping. This crib looks like a NASA capsule. This one has Bluetooth. Why would a crib need Bluetooth, Tyler? So the baby can listen to classical music and develop his right brain. What if he prefers rock? Then I'm buying earplugs for myself. They picked out constellation wallpaper. A nursing chair Tyler assembled upside down and nearly broke, and a mobile of planets that sprinkled glitter everywhere. Grace's fault. The nursery soon turned into a dreamland. Soft colors, children's books, and a small blank canvas where Grace had already started painting Oliver's first artwork. Her belly grew. And so did their love. Grace talked to Oliver every day, telling stories, asking questions, and laughing to herself when he kicked. Tyler read books out loud, played different songs, and got emotional every time he heard the baby's heartbeat at the ultrasound. There were funny moments, like when Grace got stuck in an inflatable chair and needed 2 neighbors and a dog to help her out. Or when Tyler knocked over an entire shelf of diapers at the pharmacy trying to reach a jar of vitamins. But there were intense moments too. Like the night Grace didn't feel the baby move for a few hours and they rushed to the hospital. Everything turned out fine, but from then on, they cherished every little thing even more. And on a quiet afternoon, after a day of planning for the future launch of Stone and Grace Kids, Grace stopped at the nursery doorway. Tyler was inside, straightening a picture frame on the wall. Is it crooked? He asked. She didn't answer. She just walked in, got closer, and hugged him from behind. What is it? He smiled. We're going to be good parents, right? We already are. We're just waiting for Oliver to confirm it. What if we mess up? We will mess up, but we're going to love him so much he'll forgive us before he even learns how to speak. She teared up, gently, with a smile. And he kissed her forehead. Do you know how beautiful you are with that baby bump? You're only saying that because you can't see my feet. And I don't need to. I already love every inch of the mother of my child. Night fell with a rare kind of peace. Tyler put on some soft music. Grace settled into the rocking chair in the nursery, gently rubbing her belly. Hey, Oliver, she whispered. It's Mommy. The world out there is a bit crazy, okay? But in here with Daddy and me, it's all love. Tyler knelt down and rested his ear on her belly. Son, just so you know, we're not exactly normal, but we're going to love you in a way no one else ever could. The baby kicked. They both laughed and looked at each other. I think he got the message, Grace said. Or he's asking for quiet. We talk too much. Then he definitely takes after you. They laughed again, and there in the soft, starlit glow of the little blue nursery, the future felt as certain as the kicks coming from within. Oliver hadn't been born yet, but he was already, without a doubt, the main character in Grace and Tyler's next big adventure. And chaos had never felt so sweet. What did you think of Grace and Tyler's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What's your score? Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to stay updated with all our stories. And check out more touching stories by clicking right here on the end screen.